Much, and sorry for the delay in start because we had another meeting overran, and I know you're all super keen to get in here. I heard there was some angst outside that we were delayed and we'd spoilt the highlight of your day, or delayed the start of the highlight of your day anyway. But anyway, we are here now. Welcome, members. We're live webcasting today, so can I please remind members to use their microphones and remember to turn them off when not speaking, and turn off your phones or put them on mute. Onto the agenda. Item 1, apologies. Can we have a look, please, Amelia, at the apologies for the meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've received 2 apologies from Councillors Abbott and Yardy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I want to welcome Councillor Steele to the meeting. Thank you very much for joining. And just for clarification, we now have Councillor Abbott as part of this committee, I understand.
That's correct, and I'll do an update in the minutes.
Yeah, well, that's fine. He wasn't really sure he was here or not, but he is here. And, well, not today, but well, no, not today. He's unwell, but he will be here. We'll make sure. Okay, item 2, the minutes. The committee to approve the minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee on the 31st of July. Let's do that first. Are there any... Yes, please.
Just to make an amendment to those minutes, it's just to confirm that Councillor Abbott is a member of this committee. I think we had him down as an observer on the minutes. So just for clarification, he is on the committee, and Chris Oram, who I think is noted as being absent, is not a member of this committee, and the minutes will be changed to reflect that.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful because he was a member following the annual meeting in May. Okay, right, let's take item 2A first then. Approve the minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee meeting on the 31st of July with that change mentioned by Amelia. All those in favour of that? Sorry, are there any comments, or can we note the hearing, the Audit and Governance hearing subcommittee decisions on the 4th of September? Any comments, Alison? No? Okay, all those in favour? Right, they are duly noted, thank you. Right, let's go on to item 3, urgent business. There's no items of Chair's urgent business. Item 4, division of the agenda. There is no reason to divide the agenda as far as I'm aware. Item 5, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from any members, please? No declarations of interest, thank you. All right, item 6, Bishop Fleming audit completion report. Let's see, is it Lisa or Nathan's going to take this straight away? Okay, Nathan, welcome to our Audit and Governance, and thank you very much for your report. And maybe I could ask you just to do some introductory comments and point out some of the key points we need to be aware of. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just move this a bit closer. Just because there's a couple of new faces, I'm Nathan Coughlin. I'm audit partner from Bishop Fleming, so I'm responsible for the sign-off of the audit opinion on the external audit statement of accounts and your value for money work. The report you've got in the pack today is our key issues document, which is the main output from our external audit work, which summarises the findings from our work and our conclusions. There's one other piece that goes alongside this, which is our value for money work, which feeds then into our auditor's annual report, which we'll be issuing to management probably about before the end of November, and that will come to you as an audit committee at your next meeting after that. So today it's about feeding back on the external audit and the statement of accounts. The key point in the executive summary there is that actually we're heading to give a clean external audit opinion on the true and fair nature of the financial statements and the numbers in the accounts, and that they could be prepared appropriately in accordance with the SIPFA Code of Practice and the Local Audit and Accountability Act. In terms of progress and where we are in the audit, you'll see in section 2, there's a couple of areas where we are just finalising our procedures, and just draw those out just for your attention. There's a bullet point to the top of page 28 in your pack, which show which bits we're still finalising. There's some detailed testing just getting concluded on housing benefits. We're very close to finishing our work on IFRS 16, which I'll talk about in a minute. We're waiting for response from 2 queries with the valuer. That's been just delayed a little bit because there's been a change of personnel in the valuer's organisation, but another partner's picking that up for us now. And then with the final part of it, so we expect those points to be finalised in the next week or so. The final part of that then is just the pension fund auditor's letter. So you'll probably remember that we were waiting for that last year. And we've been promised from the pension fund auditors that actually will be appearing this month as well.
Excuse me, Chair, through you. With the greatest respect, could you just speak a little slower?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, please don't apologise. Thank you so much.
Okay. It's good to have so many people that want to hear. Okay. Section 3 is where we set out, and it's important, I think, for you to note this as an audit committee, how the accounts and audit process have gone from our point of view. And we give feedback on the approach management taken, how they've interacted with us. And you'll see that there's all green traffic lights that we've awarded there in terms of being ready for the audit, the quality of the information provided, and the accuracy of that information. We've had really good engagement throughout the process as we had last year. Management want to get things right. They talk to us early on anything that's judgmental, so it's all agreed ahead of the audit. There's been probably an improvement again this year in that the new finance system again this year has enabled us. We get issued laptops to do the work, so we can do some of our team can do some of the work directly into the finance and look at the finance system directly. That process has improved again this year with the new finance system. And of course, it's our second year, so we've got that better understanding of the systems and processes as well. So that hand in hand has made the process much more effective again this year. So thank you to Pauline, Lisa and the team for their support with that. Section 4, we set out our audit risks that we put in our plan that we presented to you earlier in the year, and the work we've done to address those. I'll just pick out some of the key points of those. The first significant risk area we highlight is management override of controls, and that's considered to be a significant risk area for all audits under the auditing standards. Primarily, that's for us to consider significant estimates and judgments that are made within the financial statements. So if there's any judgmental accruals or provisions being made, for example, the biggest estimates in the accounts are around the pensions and the valuations of the land and buildings, which we'll come on to in a bit more detail separately. The other area we look at is journals. So we use a data analytics tool to look at all the transactions that are posted directly into the finance system, and that enables us to focus on high value journals, who's posting journals, looking in journals fields of text fields to identify any unusual transactions or unusual account combinations as well. And that allows us to really filter and focus on higher risk areas for our detailed testing. There's nothing to report in that area at all, no findings of note. So over the page, we then go on to those other risk areas around land and building valuations. Excuse me, my screen's frozen. Land and building valuations, and as I said there, a lot of our work there is working with your valuers to understand the assumptions they've made in coming to the conclusions on the valuations of the properties. Other than the couple of final queries we've got with the valuers, we're comfortable that the assumptions used have been reasonable, they've been accounted for appropriately in your financial statements, and you'll see that in the commentary below there, The valuations are done on a cyclical basis, so a good proportion were done last year. A slightly small proportion by value have been done this year, 25% of the assets by value. There's a change in the guidance coming forward next year, which is going to suggest applying indexation to those that aren't valued each year, so it keeps the value of them all topped up to an appropriate level. At the moment, the guidance suggests that you have to make sure you value them all at least every 5 years. But obviously, with some significant inflations in some years, you can have some quite significant changes over a 5-year period. So that guidance is coming in to sort of make sure that things are kept to a reasonable level in the years where you're not doing a full valuation as well. We do a piece of work on the assets that you haven't valued in the year to make sure we're comfortable each year as well, to make sure that those, so the 75% you haven't valued, we look at indexation ourselves to make sure that we don't think there'll be any significant changes or material changes in the valuation that you're holding them in the books at. And obviously this year it's been fairly static in things like building valuation, investment properties, so there wouldn't actually be a significant movement anyway. We followed a similar process with investment properties, although all those are valued each year. Again, no issues at all with our work in that area, and all the queries with the valuers and methodology that they've used have been resolved, and we're comfortable with those. And onto the page 35 is where we talk about pensions. You probably remember last year talking about that your share of the LGPS scheme is actually a net asset position, but under the International Accounting Standards, IFRIC 14, there's a calculation that puts an asset ceiling in there, so it caps basically how much you can recognise of a net asset position, and essentially, in your case, brought it down to nil. And that's the same this year. Your underlying position has improved again year on year, because the discount rate the actuary used has increased, so it decreases the value of your present value of your future liabilities. But this asset ceiling cap means that you should be recognising this asset, and you end up with actually a broadly nil position on that, plus a recognition of about £1.8 million liability for an unfunded obligation element of it. So you end up with and it ends up with 2 million in total then as a liability on your balance sheet. The key thing for you as an organisation is that the triennial valuation is probably more key in terms of the financial position of view of the organisation. That is carried out based on the March 25 numbers, but it's ongoing at the moment. So for the whole Devon scheme, so you should be hearing before the in the next few months what your level of contributions will be for the next 3 years, which will kick in from April 2026, and that's obviously got more direct impact on your financial position as an organisation. Okay, just to highlight at the bottom of those risk areas, under auditing standards, it's considered that risk of fraud in revenue recognition or expenditure recognition is also a significant risk area. But in local authority audits, it's common that these are rebutted, and then we talked about that when we presented the plan, that we haven't considered that to be a significant risk area through this audit this year, due to the nature of how the revenue and expenditure is incurred. Okay, the only other risk areas we've highlighted in the plan that we report back on then is that change into accounting standards for IFRS 16 for leases, and this essentially is bringing on balance sheet the commitment and the right of use asset for what was previously off balance sheet operating leases. So if you had a lease commitment to use an asset for a number of years and it was over the asset value was over a de minimis level, there's a requirement under the new standards to bring that onto balance sheet and also to recognise the liability for the future lease costs. Essentially, it grosses up what you used to have, what you've got on the balance sheet. So in your case, it's recognised an extra £500,000 in terms of right of use assets and a liability on your balance sheet at the date it was implemented. We're comfortable with the work management we've done over this, so there's been quite a detailed process to identify what leases are in place, which assets need to be brought onto the balance sheet under the guidance, and then the calculation completed to work out how much to be brought on at the transition date, and then to roll this forward to the year-end position as well. We're just doing we've identified a couple of minor tweaks that we've made and recommended management have made to the financial statements in terms of the disclosure around this area. and we're just finalising our conclusions on this, but we're comfortable that it's going to be materially correct.
Yeah, Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you. Sorry, just while you're on that point, what is the de minimis amount for the asset?
I think it's, what do we go with? In sort of 20,000 you ended up with yours? Or was it 10?
10,000
10.
pounds, yeah.
10 or 20, I knew it was one of the two. That's what everyone's gone for. So it's primarily people, organisations generally following the capitalisation limit for their own fixed assets. So if you purchase an asset yourself, you've normally set a de minimis level where you want to put that onto balance sheet yourself. And that's what most organisations have followed for that consistency point. Thank you. Section 5 just highlights audit adjustments, and you'll see adjusted items, nothing. So essentially the numbers you've got in front of you are the numbers that management prepared and presented to us. So nothing's been changed through the audit process in terms of that, which again indicates the quality of the information that's provided to us. We flagged a few areas where we've suggested and disclosure changes that have been made. I think none of those are significant from an auditor's point of view. I guess the one that will be of interest to the public is probably the first one around the officer remuneration point, and just making it clearer that actually the disclosure in the table relates to individuals' pay, not the individual's proportion of their pay for that role. So it's got the full pay for the individual, rather than actually if they're only half of their time is spent here or half it on a different role, for example. So it's actually splitting out in following the guidance, and the prior year has been restated to make sure it's on the same basis. Section 6 is where we'd include control recommendations coming from the audit process. Again, we risk rank these. You'll see we've essentially raised one low priority issue. And when I say it's low priority, I think it's kind of a best practice or piece of work for management to investigate and feedback and have a discussion with us next year. So there's when we do our journals testing, the data we use to it, the report that we use to extract from the system, put it into our tool, I identified there was 13 lines where there wasn't a description next to the journal. Reality is when you look into the system, all that data and the narrative is there, so management can get to that. It's just the format of the report that we use for that. So we've just suggested is that management take a look at some of the reporting that comes from the system to see if there's a way of actually getting that description line to pull into the relevant fields. The data's all in there. It's a low risk point for us, but it's just a point where the management can have a look at see if the reporting could be tweaked in any way. And then over the page, you'll see prior period recommendations and their position now. All but one of those have been closed. The one that's left is actually one from the previous year, but to us, so it was Grant Thornton's previous recommendation around making sure you've got backup support for the gross internal areas that the valuers are using. So the valuers use on some of the properties they've valued, they use the EPC certificate. It's got details of the floor space, but actually we think it's best practice. Well, Grant Thornton thought it was best practice, and we agree that you'd hold sort of that kind of record or information yourself on your own internal records as well in sort of property system. So management again are going to look at that for next year. So low priority points, just best practice things there to take forward. So overall very clean. So I think that's probably all I was going to raise on our report, apart from the letter of representation, which is for approval alongside the financial statements, which probably might be one of your next recommendations, but that's just for you to approve alongside the financial statements to confirm to us that everything in the financial statements is accurate to the best of your knowledge, and there's nothing in terms of anything like additional provisions, litigation that we haven't been told about that needs to be disclosed in the financial statements. It also would include details of any sort of unadjusted errors and things like that, but as I said, there aren't any such errors this year in the audit. I'll probably pause there and take any questions over our report or work.
Thank you very much, Nathan, and really appreciate for you your detailed work here and the time frame that you've kept to. So obviously good teamwork between you and our finance team, which is to be commended. And some very good points here. Just to go to the executive summary, I mean, very good to hear that there's no audit issues in the 4 areas of risk there's no adjustments, the internal controls are good, and you're comfortable with value for money and don't have any negative comments. So at a high level, I think, as well as the traffic light system, where you're commending the quality of information and the timeliness from the team, I think it's a very good feedback on the work of our finance operations. So thank you very much. I do have one question, because I didn't hear, perhaps as Councillor Presswell mentioned, the two areas outstanding. One is the pension document, and the other was, perhaps you can just repeat, please.
Yeah, so we're waiting for the pension auditor to send through their assurances over their work on the Devon County Pension Scheme audit. The lead informed us that she was hoping she might get something out this week, but then she's off holiday for a week, so it might be today, it might be tomorrow, or it might be a week's time. The other area is we've got two minor queries left with the evaluation third party that does the support, and we've got some testing that we're finalising around housing benefits. We're waiting for some final bits of information from the finance team.
Okay,
We don't
thank you very
expect
much.
it. So I was going to say we don't expect any of that to result in any changes, apart from potentially the valuation of the pension fund, where in the past sometimes if they come up with significant errors on their asset position, our share of those could result in something that could be over our trivial level, not normally material though.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. All right, are there any questions then, or comments from members? Yep, Councillor Steele.
Thank you. Okay. So just when you're talking about removing the pension asset at 25 million being sort of turned into a 200,000 liability, so does that have any other effects on the accounts overall? And is it just, and I know it's just a technical thing, but are there any ripple effects elsewhere?
No, it's purely a technical accounting adjustment that it recognises the fact that you're committed to making additional contributions and sort of into the future, and backdates that into the present value, brings it back down. It's just a technical adjustment, doesn't impact anything properly in terms of future contributions, for example. It doesn't impact anything apart in terms of your, I guess it technically looks like a slightly weaker position on the balance sheet than it would do if you were recognising 25 million as an asset. But in terms of the sort of statement of comprehensive income, where it comes in and goes out, it doesn't impact your sort of net cost of services kind of position there.
Councillor Nix.
Just a query, and it's probably for Mr. Hawke actually, rather than yourself, but it comes from the significant or the risks that you've identified in this report. I wondered if those things, particularly the monitoring of assets and the pension fund liability, are on our risk register?
They're not currently on our strategic risk register, no. They will be on service-based risk registers, but they haven't escalated to the strategic risk register at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Any more? Thank you, Councillor Nix. Any more questions on all of this? I do have a question maybe for the officer team, which is in relation to this letter of representation. So we, the committee, are signing this letter of representation, or I'm signing it on the behalf of the committee. But it doesn't appear to be in the recommendation. In the next section. You're ahead of me. Thank you. In the next section. Perfect. Any other points? Okay, so let's go to the recommendation then. Thank you very much, Nathan. Let's go to the recommendation that the contents of the audit completion report be noted. All those in favour? Excellent. Thank you. All right, good. Item 7, audited statement of accounts and annual governance statement. So over to Councillor Rake to take us through all of this. And wow, a lot of detail here, a lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers, Chair.
Tell us.
Thank you. I'll begin, if I may, just by I'd like to thank Councillor Oram for his service on this committee, and and welcome Councillor Steele and Councillor Abbott. I'm sure they'll do a splendid job as well. And then I'd like to move on to say, essentially, a lot of numbers. Most of them you've already seen on the your meeting on the 31st of July. You had the draft statement of accounts presented to you then, and apart from a big tick and a smiley face signed by the auditors on the front, there's been very little change since then. Well, no change. It is, you know, these are now the audited statements of accounts, whereas previously it was a draft, but the content is otherwise identical. And then the rest of the recommendations in this report are pretty much self-explanatory, I would hope, and I'm sure that between them, Lisa and Nathan can guide you through the intricacies of signing a letter.
Probably. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Councillor Rake. Are there any? We have seen this document before, and as you say, it's not materially changed in any way. So we have had a chance to ask questions about it. Are there any comments again? Maybe people have had a more insight in rereading the whole thing second time around, or perhaps Councillor Steele. I don't think you were in the previous meeting. He was. He was. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. No. But if anyone has any questions, let me know, or comments. Okay, you've had your chance. So let's have a look at the letter of representation. Do we have any? Maybe I could ask. Maybe I could ask Lisa just to comment on this, if you wouldn't mind, so that we know exactly what we're putting pen and paper to.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. So this is something that is standard procedure. All councils would have to give a letter of representation to their external auditors. The wording has come from Bishop Fleming. We have looked at that, and there's nothing in there that we're not happy to sign to. I mean, it sets out things like we have to disclose that obviously the financial statements are free of any material misstatements, including omissions. So we are signing to say there is nothing that we have not disclosed to our external auditors, that they are not aware of at the point that the audited accounts are signed. And then there are sections with regards to things like internal audit and internal control and fraud. So again, we are declaring that there isn't any fraudulent activity that we are aware of that we haven't, again, disclosed to our external auditors, and things like assets and liabilities that we are happy with the assumptions that we have made in making those accounting estimates. So this is something we would do every year. And we always present this to the committee so that the committee know what we are signing with regards to myself as a Section 151 officer and yourself as the chair of the committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Appreciated. I'm just concerned about Councillor Preswell, so we're still quorate, aren't we? So we don't have a problem with this. Okay, annual governance statement. Right, I'm just taking a quick look at the annual governance statement. This is pretty much the same each year. So there have been some updates. Are there any things in this, Lisa, we need to note that's of concern or different to previous years? Do you have anything, or Councillor Rake, if you have any comments that we need to be aware of on this?
No, Chair. I think essentially these letters are pro forma items that just need to be signed. Really, I don't know. I don't think I would. I mean, it's entirely up to you, of course, how much time you spend considering this. But I think that you're going to have to sign them one way or another.
I'm glad we've got so much flexibility. Councillor Lee.
Yes, I'm sorry, just to return to the audited statements of accounts, I brought this up at Chair's brief on Monday regarding the variation on homelessness costs. I wondered if we got a reply on that, please.
Yes, yeah, we've got a response on that. Thank you. So, in terms of what procedures the council are putting in place to address the overspend on homelessness, we are obviously investing in our own accommodation. So, we are trying to drive down the cost of other forms of pay nightly accommodation. Obviously, challenges remain around the lack of affordable options that residents can move on with, and demand in particular is for one bed accommodation. So around 70% of our temporary accommodation use is for residents requiring one bed accommodation and not families. And as a council, we constantly balance the cost of that accommodation with individual needs of our residents and where they need to be in the district. We have got Westfield flats, so they are some one bed accommodation units. Work is nearly completed there, and we do anticipate that accommodation being operational in the next few months. So that will certainly help. Self-contained accommodation is obviously always better than other forms of insecure accommodation. Obviously, we appreciate the fact that it might not be in a place that a person wants to be. However, we keep any stay in temporary accommodation to an absolute minimum. And obviously, without having a home permanently available in each location, we will never be in a position of being able to meet everyone's need. But our housing officers do continue to work with our residents in temporary accommodation to help them to move on and access more secure accommodation as quickly as possible. So we are doing as much as we can. We are hopeful that there will be more of the LAF government funding stream. So that's where we've been able to access some government grant to buy houses that the council will own and then match fund that. And we do think that for every unit of accommodation that we're able to do that, that probably brings our temporary accommodation cost down anywhere between 15 and 20,000 per annum. So if there are more local authority housing fund government grant streams that we can access, we would certainly be looking to do that with. We've done it for what's called LAF 1, LAF 2 and LAF 3. We would look to do that for LAF 4 as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lisa.
Yeah, Councillor Rake.
If I could just add two comments to Lisa's comprehensive answer. One is, I think it's important to pay tribute to the work that our housing team does upstream of homelessness. I mean, because obviously prevention is always better than cure, and I think that's an important thing to note. And the other thing is that this is something that is very much out of our hands. You know, that we're obviously the victims of circumstances are often the people who become homeless, but we have very little control over demand, and so we can only really address it in trying to balance the supply of sort of permanently owned assets plus the availability of overflow, but yeah. So.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Rake. Councillor Bresswell.
Yes, this might have already been said because I had to pop out, but of the new flats, and you mentioned the figure 70%, how much of a dent in that 70% figure will those new flats make?
I'd have to check with our housing team on that. I think the units at Westfield, I think it's 10 units of accommodation that would be available. So yeah, we can certainly clarify that with the housing team give a written response on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. That would be helpful. Yes, Councillor Den.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a minor point in terms of the governance statement is obviously dated October, but there's on page 201, I think, or 197, whichever way you do it. There's just reference to a in-person business continuity exercise, which was planned for April 2025. So I suspect that probably did happen, but I'm just wondering if it's happened and just the dates don't quite work out there. Thank you.
Yeah,
It did happen, Councillor Dennis. Yep, it was really helpful, actually. And yes, we just didn't update it in the AGS. Apologies.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to raise the issue on this of the recycling rates. So key areas of note. We've said that the recycling rate was 50% above average for England and improved from last year, but later in the document, later in the pack, we're still rating it as red in the I don't know what page it is on actually, but maybe you could just explain. We're obviously trying to improve more and it's not meeting our goal or something. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes, that's right. So I think it's on page 82 of the agenda. So it's in our corporate performance section, whereby we say there that the council's recycling rate for last year, 24-25, was 50%, and that was above the average rate of recycling for the whole of England, which was 43.4. The council's own target for recycling was higher than the 50%. So that's why in the key performance indicator report there, we're seeing a red cross against recycling. So although we were over and above the All England average, we were slightly below the council's individual recycling target, which is why we've got the red cross. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And on page 74, we've listed the spending close to £500,000 on Rural England Prosperity Fund, but we haven't said what we're getting for that. Do we have some information? Because I think we had a similar line last year without any detail. Could you help us on that, please?
Yes, certainly. So this was a government grant scheme called the Rural England Prosperity Fund. So that was issued by central government, and the council actually spent over 60 capital grants of up to £10,000 each for small businesses and community organisations across the district. So the sorts of things that those grants were spent on were things like grants were issued for farms to adopt new pieces of equipment on their sites, which had been trialled through something called the Agricultural Innovation Project. They were also used to help businesses and community organisations to decarbonise their activities. So a lot of those grants, that 480,000, was around decarbonisation. So it was things like purchase of heating, insulation and renewable technologies. There were grants awarded to some businesses to help them diversify their activities in a way which would result in clean growth. And things like purchasing electric vans, renewable charging infrastructure to expand their activities. So there was a grant application process, and those were the sort of grants that were awarded. Also, community organisations were able to receive support to make their organisations more resilient and sustainable. So that was things like helping them generate new revenue streams, or things like developing a kitchen to allow them to open up as a rural cafe, or through the installation of solar panels. So it did very much have a decarbonisation aspect to it, but there were a wide range of grants which were given across the district, but altogether that came to 480,000, but that was government grant funding that we were administering. It wasn't the council's own funds. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. That's very helpful, and I think it will be useful without going into all that detail, but maybe just put a line or two next time round if we could, just to explain some of the benefits accruing to the community from all of that. That's very good. Also on page, it doesn't have page 193, under Audit and Governance Committee, in the annual governance statement, we've said that the Audit and Governance Committee is responsible for making sure that the council operates in accordance with the law, etc., etc. I mean, we may be very important and powerful, but I'm not sure we quite go that far. So I think we ask for some qualification of that line to make sure that we don't have all reaching powers for law enforcement in the council. Did we make an amendment, or could we consider an amendment, please, on that line?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So we did speak to David Fairbairn, the Council's monitoring officer. We have agreed a change of wording with Bishop Fleming following briefing meeting earlier this week. So we are proposing to change page 193 of the agenda. So rather than saying that the Audit and Governance Committee is responsible for making sure the Council operates in accordance with the law, we would look to change that to say the Audit and Governance Committee has oversight of ensuring that the Council operates in accordance with the law. So just a slight change from, rather than being responsible for it, for the committee to have an oversight of ensuring we operate in accordance with the law. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I personally think I feel more comfortable with that. I don't know if anyone wants to comment. I mean, does it make more sense, Nathan? I mean, do you have a view on that?
Well, yeah, we're comfortable with that being more appropriate as well.
Okay, thank you. That's very good. Yeah, okay, so let me just touch very briefly on the summary of accounts in part 4 or line 4 of the recommendations. I mean, again, I think they're very helpful and good. We said this last time, they're more comprehensive now. We've put more in based on feedback from this committee last year, and I think they're getting even more useful now, so I really like them. Maybe I could just ask for a slight clarification on line 5. Because we've heard from Nathan, there's 2 outstanding issues. So are we signing the audited accounts, well, subject to these 2 documents or these 2 points being finalised? How are we actually proceeding now with this point 5?
From our point of view, as I said, we're not expecting any changes to the numbers from these final procedures. So from our side, we'd be comfortable if you approved it subject to, and then obviously put the signatures on once those procedures are completed.
So we're only signing it after you've checked these 2 points?
It's up to you on your side. We will not sign our opinion until we've completed our procedures on our side. So,
okay, I mean, I'll be advised by Lisa on this.
I think we were in this position last year as well, the same position, and I think we agreed the same wording last year that it, if the committee are happy to do that, to give delegated authority to myself and the chair to jointly sign those audited accounts at a date whenever Bishop Fleming are ready to give their audit opinion. Yeah, so we're signing everything subject to just that last bit of information coming in from the pension fund. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. All right, so with that, then I'm pretty comfortable with this. Any other comments on this motion? Yep, Councillor.
Very tiny nitpicking, but let's give we're putting our name to it. So page 195, just that last paragraph on the action to address issue, where it says on 6th of March 2025, the executive will consider the revenue budget. So I guess just to take out that word will.
Yes, good spot there.
Just
yeah. We can amend that in the published report.
Yes, we can. Yeah, we can. We'll print off a new copy for Bishop Fleming because I think we've got a copy already signed, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah, but we could just cross through that word if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, well then, thank you very much for that, Councillor Steele. If no other comments, then I will move the recommendations for item 7 that we approve parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Is there a seconder for that? Oh, the Councillor.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, they seemed quite reluctant, so I'm glad there was a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much, committee. Very good. All right, well, thank you, Nathan and team again for all the detailed work in this. And there's a lot of information. And again, very good that we haven't had to make any changes because that reduces the workload, etc., on everybody. And good that each year we seem to be moving earlier and earlier in this. So, okay, so let's go then to item 8, progress on the internal audit, and I'll ask Councillor Rake, if he may, to introduce this, and I'm sure bring in Joe from Devon Audit Partnership on the detail. Thank you for joining us. Councillor Rake, over to you.
That will be my pleasure, Chair. You'll see before you the internal audit report. Essentially, it's gives everything a pretty clean bill of health. I don't want to speak for Jo. She will speak for herself in a moment. But there is limited assurance issued on the Dartmouth, rather than Dartmoor as it has it in the report, lower ferry cash receipting system. In this, we're the victims of a fairly outdated piece of software that's produced by, as I understand it, a sort of a two-person team, and it's also, as I understand it, there's no suggestion that there is any actual wrongdoing, but just that it's not a particularly good system, and that therefore increases the potential for wrongdoing. But that said, I will hand you over to Jo, who will tell you all the rest.
Well, thank you, Councillor Rake. I'm glad you clarified. I know there's a lot of rain falling on Dartmoor, but I was wondering where the lower ferry was.
When I first saw it, I didn't know if it was a misspelling of Dartmouth or of ferry, because up on Dartmoor there's plenty of ferries. So
indeed. Jo, over to you. Help us.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Jo McCormick from Devon Assurance Partnership. Apologies about the spelling mistake in there one time on the Dartmouth ferry. Okay, so what you have before you today is the first update report from internal audit for 25-26. So this gives an update to where we are at this current time in terms of the audit reviews that we've completed, which have gone to final report stage. You'll see that there is a number of reports that we're reporting here, which are at final report stage. The majority of the reports have got substantial or reasonable assurance, and then we just have the one on the Dartmouth Lower Ferry, which we'll touch on in a second. You'll also notice that there is a lot of work in trains, so there's a lot of work which is at fieldwork stage and also at draft report stage. So those are the audits we'll be looking to bring to you at the next audit committee meeting later in the year. Just moving through the report. At the end of year, we give an opinion on the overall assurance that we can give for the authority. You'll see that at the moment we have not given that opinion that we're working towards, and that's really common at this time of year. It's too early to say we haven't got enough of the audit plan to be able to give that opinion that we're working to. But what we would be looking to is hopefully build that up from the next committee meeting that we attend, where we've got through more of the audit plan. Just moving on to the summary assurance opinions, you'll see there's one audit there that we've given a substantial assurance for payroll, 3 audits at reasonable assurance, that's for council tax and business rates, and also the audit recommendation tracker. Just to point out on council tax and business rates, in the past we have given a limited assurance on those, so it's really good progress to see that moved up to that reasonable assurance opinion. And the auditor noted the good work of the team to actually move forward those issues that we've identified in the past. And then has already touched on, we've got the Dartmoor Lower Ferry, where we have given a limited opinion. Dartmouth Lower Ferry, I'm reading it on the report. Dartmouth Lower Ferry, where we've given that limited assurance opinion. In terms of that, it is actually, as already mentioned, on the income system that's being used. We have noted that over a number of years that we've identified that the system is not able to sort of reconcile the income, identify those adjustments and those bankings. There's lots of limitations to the system, which therefore puts staff at risk working within that system. What we would like to note is that the amounts that we've looked at over our audit are small, and they aren't material. We have been assured that the system is looking to be updated over the next 6 to 12 months. So part of our work, we will come back and follow up on that and see if that's in train, and therefore the new system hopefully then addresses those concerns that we've raised in this report. That's probably the key points I wanted to raise as part of our update today. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to help.
Joe, thank you very, very much for that. And it is encouraging, especially if we've got two areas that are pretty significant in terms of their finance figures that are improving. Councillor Rake.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to get reassurance that where you've got ongoing work, if there were, if at the draft report stage or even before, there were concerns arose, that you would bring those to us without waiting for the report, particularly if they were serious concerns, without waiting for the report to be finalised.
Through you, Chair, thank you. Our process with our work is that when we're working with our client through our audit testing stage, we do alert them to any issues we may identify at that stage. And that's really useful to do that, because it may be that we've not got something quite right, so it might need a clarification. Or actually, if it is a particular medium or high risk, we're alerting to the client early enough so they can do something about that, and that's key. If we were very concerned it's a high risk, we would bring that to Lisa and her team and have that discussion then, if it's necessary, to bring that through to the audit committee prior to it being final report. One of the key things we want to do is to ensure that the client has suitable opportunity to respond to our findings. So it's really important that our findings have been clarified and confirmed before we're bringing them to the public domain.
So, to be clear, sorry, Chair, if I may. So, to be clear, if you identified at a relatively early stage that you had concerns, you would discuss, where you say your client, where I presume you mean Lisa and the team. So you would discuss that with them, and in the case of sort of relatively minor concerns, it would be up to them whether they wanted to bring that before this committee or not. But if the concerns were somewhat greater, you would bring them directly, as it were.
Thank you, Chair. Minor concerns, then we would wait for the report to go to final stage, for it to come through to committee, and the aim is to get that through to final stage quite quickly. We don't want audits dragging on, so therefore there always will be a short time frame before it comes through to the next committee. If we had any serious concerns, then we would have discussions with Lisa and the team that we bring that to committee prior to the report being finalised.
Yeah, good point, Councillor Rake. Thank you for raising that. I think it's important, clearly, that we fix things as soon as we can. Okay, are there any other member questions? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. Just so a couple of bits. On the page 208, there's a table of reports that audits that are going to be reported to the October committee. Listed in that table is Electric Seaway Grant and Homes England Grant. I can't see anything about those two things though, so where's that information?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the grants, we are not giving an opinion on those grants, we are signing off those grants. So there's a little bit of narrative within our report saying that we have signed them off. Because it's grant work, we don't actually sort of put them in Appendix A with the detail, because we're just auditing against the grant's terms and conditions, and we were satisfied with that the terms and conditions had been met for those two grants. So no more detail has been included except for that sort of line to say that we have signed them off.
Sorry, I was just trying to remember my second question. Thank you. It's just a question for yourself. Sorry, Pauline. It's just about the Dartmouth ferry, really, and just where it sits, because I believe it comes under the management of the Harbour Board, but it's not something that we ever discuss necessarily in the Harbour Board. So, where does that get talked about?
So in terms of the operation of the ferry, that the director responsible for that would be Mr. Brooke, currently. So that is something that, yes, would come to the committee. I don't think it goes to the Harbour Board, does it? Because it's not an operation of the Salcombe Harbour as such. So it's just reported through the normal committees of the council. Thank you.
Yeah, so the ferry is just seen as another service of the council, whereas the harbour is separate, and that is part of the Harbour Board. It's just that Cam, the harbour master, manages both of those services.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Dennis. I think we had a similar point before, didn't we? When Cam looks after both, but not as part of the Harbour Board. It's a bit confusing. Yeah. Okay, I've got some questions myself on the council tax and the business rate. So, especially about the refund process and the identification of fraud. I mean, these two seem quite important areas of potential weakness, and especially as potential fraud is involved. What are we doing? What are we needing the council to do, Joe, in terms of fixing this so that these areas don't get worse, or get fixed rather, I should say? Is there anything you can comment on, please?
Thank you, Chair. I would need to look at the detailed report just to see exactly what the issue was identified, but just looking at the summary in front of you that we have in front of us today on council tax. So it looks like a review should be undertaken on the processes and procedures for identifying suspicious accounts. So it seemed like there was not a robust process in place to actually identify that. I would need to go back to the main report to see in detail, but what I would say is we've given a reasonable assurance on that, so it isn't something that's of a medium or high risk, but I would need to just refer back to the detailed report to give a summary, unless Lisa has any more
maybe
information on
Lisa
that.
can just help us understand.
Yeah,
if
thank you,
you've got a moment.
Chair.
Thank
I can add a bit more to that because we have got a new role within our revenues and benefits team, senior revenues officer responsible for enforcement and quality assurance. That post is starting now in early October, so that is part of the role that we would ask them to progress that bit of work. Obviously, if we have any concerns about serious fraud, we do refer them through to Devon Audit Partnership, because the council itself doesn't have its own fraud team. But yeah, we do have that process whereby we can buy into some time of the Devon Audit Partnership for any specialist fraud work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. I think it sounds like we're fixing it. So, I mean, Joe, I don't think we need more information. I'm personally quite happy with that answer, Lisa. If we've got a new person starting, it's going to focus on that. And then a question over the assets. Sorry, the audit tracker recommendations. I mean, the audit tracker seems very good to me. So I'm not quite sure what else we might want, because you've got you're saying oversight of the internal audit tracker and process against recommendations is already carried out. But what are you're also saying that maybe the timelines aren't clear. What else might we need, or maybe it's already been put in place? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if Neil, do you want to comment on that? Because
yes, I can do, if Joe's happy for me to take that one. And I was going to cover it under the next item, but effectively at the moment it's quite a clunky process. So the audit team have their system which capture all the recommendations. Those are then downloaded, put into a spreadsheet that we use to circulate internally for officers to go in and every month update the status. but that doesn't then feed back into the audit system. So we hope, and we're currently exploring it, that there is an opportunity that we could enable some of our officers to go straight into the audit system and provide updates, close recommendations down in the audit system, which might then we're still exploring it, but I think there are benefits in doing that. So we've got one version of the truth. There's always a risk when you put things into spreadsheets that something might not get copied across correctly, so we're looking to remove that risk.
Okay, thanks, Neil. That's very helpful. Again, if we're looking at it and we've got some potential actions, that seems a good course for me. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the internal audit progress plan and actions arising? Okay, so let's move the motion that we approve and note. I'm still confused about approve and note, but it'll get clearer as we go along. The progress made against the internal audit plan and any issues arising. I think we're approving the audit plan and noting the progress, something like that. Anyway, is there a seconder? Oh, yes. Well, thank you, Councillor. All right, all those in favour? Brilliant. Thank you very much, committee. All right, good. Thank you very much, Joe, for all your work on this, and again, good to see a lot of green in these feedback reports. So appreciate that. All right. Councillor Rake's disappeared, so well, we're not on Councillor Rake, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, you're ahead of me. Treasury. Oh, yeah. I beg your pardon. Treasury management. Okay. Perfect timing. Councillor Rake, we are looking at Treasury Management Q1 report. Councillor Rake, Executive Lead for Finance, will introduce the report. And Pauline Henstock-Hawke will go through it. It's all right. Some typos here in my briefing notes. Anyway, Councillor Rake, over to you.
Thank you. No wonder Julian always looks so tired. I would like to introduce the report, first quarter report for Treasury Management. It's pretty much self-explanatory. We were 5 basis points above Sonia, our dear friend of yours, I know, Chair, who so beating that and performing, sort of in line with expectations to that extent. So the economic forecasts are all there, and the rest is there for you to read. And I think I'll shut up now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rake. Very, very succinct and helpful introduction. Do we want anyone from the finance team to give a bit more detail and narrative? I think that Claire's doing the work behind this, is she? Should Claire help us with some of the detail or changes since last time? Will be helpful to understand.
Or I'm very happy to give a bit of an overview, Chair. Thank you. So yes, as Councillor Rake has said, this is our normal monitoring report for Q1. Obviously, it's always pleasing to have achieved an investment rate of return of 4.36 and be in excess of the SONIA rate. Obviously, we have got there on page 235, we've got the Council's Treasury Management Advisor. They have given us their interest rate forecast. So you can see there that bank base rate obviously is currently 4%. That is predicted to drop to 3.5% by September 2026, and then to go down again to 3.25% by September 27. So we are required to do these monitoring reports every quarter. On page 236, there is a list there of the Council's current investments. So we do invest in money market funds, we invest in banks and building societies within the UK, and then we also have 3.5 million invested with CCLA, part of that in a property fund, and part of that in the Better World Cautious Fund. And then on page 238, you can see there are the Council's borrowings. So we have In the main, 3 loans, and the current amount of debt outstanding is 12.9 million. And what we do in terms of the council's borrowing is we always match the life of the loan to the life of the asset. So you can see there in the first row on the table, we've got PWLB, we've got 23 maturity loans. That was for the leisure investment. And then we've got 2 other loans, again, which were annuity loans. Those are for 50 years each. So what happens is we have budgeted amounts of what's called minimum revenue provision. So that is where the council is paying back the principal amounts and the interest amounts on that borrowing. And you can see there's a prediction of PWLB rates over current rates. So PWLB rates are still high at the moment. They are predicted to start coming down, but that's something that we would keep an eye on a sort of daily, weekly basis. And then in Appendix A, again, this is something that we have to do. These are government requirements that we have to set out our prudential and treasury management indicators. So we have to look at what our estimate of capital expenditure is, and how is that compared against budget. And on page 243, you can see that our estimate for capital expenditure in this financial year is 15.5 million. That is higher than we had budgeted, and the reason for that is just a timing difference. So we originally thought that the land at Sherford would be purchased in the 24-25 financial year. We actually purchased that land in Q1 of 25-26. So that's why there's a bit of a difference. It's just that the timing of that capital purchase happened a couple of months later than we originally anticipated. Then moving forward on page 244, that just sets out capital financing requirements. So really what that is it's the council's underlying need to borrow for its capital programme. Obviously we can only borrow for capital projects, and we are estimating that to be 23 million for 25-26. And then on page 245, this is something the committee commented on before. There is a potential indicator to say what are our financing costs and what proportion of the net revenue stream is that. It used to be that treasury management income got deducted in that indicator, but this is the indicator that the government have changed. So those financing costs are now just debt costs. So they are just us paying off the minimum revenue provision, the capital amount or principal amount of debt, and interest costs. So no longer do you see that figure as a negative figure, which used to be very confusing for all councils. The government have recognised that, and they have changed how that indicator is calculated. And then we just have our authorised limit, which again is 40 million. Obviously, we aren't anywhere near that at the moment. We've got borrowing levels of 12.9 million. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Yeah, and as we noted before, good that the government changed something and made life slightly simpler and clearer for us. Okay, I've got some questions, but I'll hold off and see if any other members have got any points. Yes, Councillor Hancock.
Question for Lisa, I guess. Given the just on in terms of our treasury management income over the sort of medium term, how is that likely to be impacted by decreasing interest rates? How much are we expecting it to go down, presumably, and if so, by how much, and what's going to be the impact on our budget?
We were expecting it to go down. I think the fact that base rates haven't fallen quite as quickly as we were all probably originally predicting, our our budget at the moment for treasury management income is £1 million. We're going to be slightly up on that. We're going to be at about 1.14 million. Looking forward into next year, again, we might be slightly higher than 1.1 million, because again, when we were setting those targets, we thought base rates might have dropped to around 3.25 or 3%, the fact that they are a bit higher. But we are also factoring in the fact that we think our reserves will go down next year as well. So obviously it's not just what a base rate's doing, it's how much cash and how much balances does the council have. And as we are spending things on things like the council plan, and we are spending some of that funding, then obviously the amount we've got to invest decreases as well. And then you've got other cash flow impacts. Obviously we collect the council tax, we collect the business rates. Council tax has normally increased by about 4.9% when you take into account the county increase. So during that middle point of the year, you do have more cash to invest as well. So we've got a very big spreadsheet that tries to map all of that, and map when we think expenditure will go out on big capital projects and when income will come in, particularly for things like council tax and business rates. So yeah, we're quite confident that we think our investment income won't drop too much below that £1 million at the moment. But obviously, you know, we will keep a watching eye on any economic factors that may impact on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful to understand. Councillor Rick.
I'd just point out, Chair, that there is also there's an automatic stabiliser in play here, in that interest rates will come down as and when inflation comes down, and therefore, to an extent, any decrease in investment income is offset by a reduction in inflationary pressures.
Yep, fair point. Assuming logic applies to the financial markets. You don't need to answer that one. Yeah, Councillor Steele.
Okay. So I guess it's a good thing in terms of what we're invested in. There doesn't seem to be a lot of stock market exposure, so we're not hostage to big swings, and there seems to be lots of worrying talk at the moment about impending stock market doom, bubbles and so on. So, but it doesn't seem like we're exposed to that. We're in money markets and property rather than.
Yes, that's right. I think the return that we're getting on money market funds, I mean, you can see there in the first couple of months of this year, we were getting 4.27%, 4.29%. We also invest money with HM Treasury, and we were getting about 4.2% on that, and we've got money with Barclays as well. So yes, I think that is the council's that is the strategy that members have set. So in the March council every year, members set where they want the council to invest its investments. Our strategy has been for a number of years that we limit that to banks and building societies within the UK only, and money market funds. And the reason we invest in money market funds, they are AAA rated credit rating, so very high quality credit rating. And yes, obviously we have interactive credit rating models. So every morning when the team go to do investments, we know exactly if there's been a change in the credit rating criteria of any of the third parties that we would look to invest in, because obviously if their credit rating has changed overnight and we go to do an investment first thing in the morning, then we need to know if their credit rating has gone outside of the range which we would deem to be acceptable, which is AA minus. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's reassuring. Yeah, we're not really investing in the stock market, so yeah, we're fairly safe. I'm a bit. Maybe I haven't understood this part very well, Lisa. But the borrowing need, the capital financing requirements. So there was a delay in the acquisition of land from Sherford, but there's also a delay in the purchasing of vehicles for the fleet, the waste fleet. So it's sort of a bit netting out, but the capital financing requirement has gone down on the estimate now, which is presumably in the past couple of weeks compared to the budget, has gone down. But the other part, the total capital program has gone up. I don't really, I mean, I'm sort of missing the detail here. So on page 243, the estimate's higher than the budget, but on 244, the estimate's lower than the budget.
Yeah, I can explain that.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
So in terms of the first one, why is the capital expenditure lower? It's because last year in 24-25 we would have had a higher estimate in the capital expenditure because we thought that the purchase of Sherford would happen before March 25. So what you're not seeing on page 243 is what the budget for 24-25 was before the actual, because the budget would have been higher because it would have had the Sherford purchase in it. So the budget would have been higher. That budget has the estimate is higher now because we actually bought that property or that piece of land in June. In terms of the capital financing requirement, we haven't yet borrowed for the waste fleet. There's a long, we have placed the order, but in terms of when would we physically pay the bill for the waste fleet, that won't be until Q1 of 26-27. So that's when we would physically borrow any money, would be in 26-27. And then similarly for the land purchase at Sherford, we've only made part of the payment on that because that payment is in instalments. So again, in terms of physically money that has gone out the door, in the main that has been funded by the seed funding that we received from the government for the Freeport. So we have used that government grant funding first because we anticipate that PWLB rates will be lower this time next year. So it makes sense to use the government grant money first and then use borrowing second because the rates will be lower.
I can see the hand of Councillor Rake behind this because it seems very clever. in that we've obviously delayed borrowing, we're delayed spending the borrowed money. And
we haven't borrowed.
We haven't borrowed at the high rate.
We've used the government grant seed funding, in the main.
But it's still slightly confusing to me, but I understand the explanation. Councillor Rake.
I can't take any credit for this, Chair, but I will.
Okay, I mean, I think I get the picture. How big is maybe just to put it into context, how big is the money for Sherford and how much is the money for the waste fleet, just so that we sort of get a picture?
Yes, so the borrowing for the waste fleet is £3 million. So we would look to borrow that in 26-27. And in terms of Sherford, the borrowing for that is 3.5 million. We haven't borrowed any of that yet in terms of taking the external borrowing from the PWLB. So we have used the government grant seed funding, which we received from government to pay that first tranche for the land.
I'm looking to Nathan to see if he has any comments on this, but
the only comment I'd probably add is just to say that it's one of those areas again that we had early discussion on Sherford, and that's one of the things we talked about. Actually, one of the first things we talked about last year, in fact, where we thought it might fall into this year's numbers. So it's a good example of things where we've talked about accounting for it and being comfortable with it already.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. All right, good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa. Any other questions on all of this? Yeah, of course, Councillor Tate.
A couple of points of clarity, really, from Lisa. You've mentioned you got some capital borrowing. Is that already allocated to something, or is that something you keep under your bonnet for a rainy day? But that I would like. And also, is the waste fleet finance, is that a net figure? Because you got obviously some trade-in values, presumably, whether it's scrap or whatever it is, to come back on that figure. And also, I believe there was a fund in place for vehicle replacement over the years.
Yes. So in terms of the waste vehicle, there is what's called a fleet forward plan. So that looks at the total amount the council needs to borrow. And when you profile that, there was a report that came to the executive, I can't remember the exact date, but that asked for approval to borrow externally for the £3 million. That was in addition to the revenue money. We put aside 550,000 per annum into a waste fleet reserve, and you'll be able to see in the accounts, I think there's about 550,000 in that reserve currently at the year end. So the £3 million that we are going to borrow and the money that is in the earmark reserve, both of those amounts are needed to pay for the vehicles. So it is the main refuse vehicles we are buying. I think it's not the recycling vehicles. I think it's the main refuse vehicles, and those vehicles I think are around £250,000 each. So it is the main ones we are buying for the fleet. Apologies, I'm just trying to remember what your in terms of have we borrowed any money that's not yet allocated to capital projects? No, we're not allowed to do that. So you're not allowed to do something which is called borrow in advance of need. So you can't just borrow an amount of money from the PWLB and sort of keep it in the bank. It has to be for a specific capital purpose. So no, we've not borrowed any money that isn't for a capital project.
Yeah, I understand that, Lisa. My reading of the accounts was that you've allocated a figure for capital investments. I didn't say you'd borrowed it. You'd allocated a figure in the accounts going forward. So is that going to be used, or have I misread it?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure which bit that refers to. I mean, we've only got the 3 existing loans which we've had for a number of years for the leisure centres, Dartmouth Health and Wellbeing Centre, and Dartmouth M&S, which was an investment property. And we're not looking to borrow more funds apart from for the waste vehicles and the land at Sherford. So those are our only borrowings historically and planned for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Okay, so just want to go back to the very first point here, that we're actually doing a very nice job in terms of the overall treasury management. We're beating the benchmark. Not quite as much as we beat it in the past, but at least we're winning, and the treasury management income is fairly stable and looks good going forward. So I think probably positive work there being done by the finance team. Thank you for that. So let's move the recommendation that they resolve to endorse the contents of the report. And is there a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Hancock. All right, those in favour? Perfect. All right, thank you very much. So let's move then to item 10, the internal audit recommendation tracker. Councillor Rake will introduce the report and Neil Hawke will go through any details. So over to you, Councillor Rake. You are incredibly busy.
So it would seem, Chair, yes, thank you. So after that brief but delightful excursion into Treasury Management, we return to internal audit with this, the report on implementation of recommendations, which I will leave you in Neil's capable hands to talk you through the details. And I'm afraid on that bombshell, I will have to leave. I'll stay for as long as I can, but if I slip out, it's because I have to.
Thank you, Councillor Rake. Thank you, Chairman. So I think the report probably speaks for itself. I think since the last update, all recommendations that were due to be completed in 2022 have been completed. There were a few medium priority transaction or recommendations outstanding in the last report to committee, which was about 6 months ago. The focus is now on getting on top of the 2023 outstanding recommendations. There, as you can see from the report, there's one high priority recommendation, which is in respect of development of our asset management strategy, and 5 medium priority recommendations, all of which are in progress, but they are recommendations such as around reviewing our levels of insurance for the council. So, for example, we are looking to go to procure new insurance for 1st of April 2026. So all of the outstanding medium priority recommendations are underway, but of course we need to report that they are overdue because they were originally due in 2023. 2024 figures, no high priority recommendations remaining in progress. And for 2025, 3 high priority recommendations remaining in progress, 2 of which have been covered, which relate to the Dartmouth Lower Ferry cash receipting, and 1 relates to depot and store controls, which is essentially how we store the equipment down in the depots. And again, the equipment for that is on order and due to be received imminently. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Neil. That seems good. Any questions from members on this? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Hawke, as well. I find this report really quite satisfying, how the numbers and the actions keep sort of moving up. So well done to everybody that's involved in shifting those along and getting them completed. I've just got a few questions, if that's okay. Ms. Hawke, you outlined one of the medium-term ones for 2023. I just wondered if you could just give us a summary of the other 4 and what they might be. The second question was, can you explain the difference between the total number of recommendations due for implementation each year between what was reported back in January and now? So particularly 2024, in January, we had 169 recommendations due, and on this report it says 185. So it might be that well, I thought it would be that some were no longer relevant, but actually it now looks as if there's more. It's increased, so I'm not sure what's going on there. And the third question, sorry, I can remind you of these if necessary, but the third question is just about that asset maintenance strategy, and obviously that is high priority and it has been overdue, and I wondered if we can put a date on when that will be completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. So in terms of the 2023 outstanding medium priority actions, one of them relates to access permissions for our benefits system, and that's just how we manage internal access to that system. So it's some of the controls that are in place. We are looking at upgrades to that system at the moment, so that will be addressed through that process. There are a couple related to central storage of contracts, and do we have central site of contracts and partnership arrangements? Again, that's in progress. It's well underway, but I couldn't hand on heart say we are confident everything is there. So we are doing that review. And then there are, hang on, that's 1, 2, and then one related to, as I said, the insurance cover. And a procurement is about to start in the next couple of days for the insurance cover. In terms of the differences with numbers, I mean, that really comes back to the point raised in the audit, that we're copying and pasting across from an audit system into a different spreadsheet. And as we've done that, we've actually highlighted that some were missing in a previous report, which is why it is really important that we do progress with that single version of the truth so that we don't give committee figures that are inaccurate. But, complete transparency, it's a risk with copying and pasting across from spreadsheets. So that will be addressed in future reports. Was there another question? Building maintenance. Yes, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, Matthew Hill is now in post, and I know that he is progressing work on the asset management strategy, but I wouldn't like to say hand on heart when that's due. Do you know, Lisa?
I think it's certainly something which is high priority within Matthew's remit. I would hope that we would have that within 6 months, probably. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Neil. I'm wondering if Councillor Dennis, do we want to ask for a brief update in writing? Because I think it has been sitting around quite a little while. Yeah, Councillor Dennis?
Yes, I think that would be helpful, and certainly if it's not completed at the next time this is reported, then perhaps Matthew could come along and explain to us what the delay is.
Councillor Nix?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Powell addressed that at a recent meeting, and he said 6 months from when Matthew started. So I don't know if that's still on track, but I think Councillor Dennis has suggested a good item there for perhaps the next meeting.
Okay, so maybe we'll ask Matthew to just give us a written update prior to the next meeting if he can. I don't think it needs to come along necessarily, but just where he's got to and what the completion date is, because we don't, I mean, part of the purpose of this, which I do agree, Councillor Dennis is very helpful, is to make sure things don't sit around too long, and if they do look like they're sitting around, we chase them a little bit. So, yeah, that seems fine. Okay, any other comments on this tracker report? Okay, well, let's move forward then. Thank you very much, Neil, for completing this, and also for being honest with where we are with the, you know, the figures and the disparities there, but that's, I think, normal. But let's make sure we get it tighter going forwards. So let's take the recommendation that the Audit and Governance Committee notes the progress update against the implementation of the internal audit recommendation as set out in this report. So we're noting that. I'm happy to propose. Any seconder? Councillor Nix, I think, and all those in favour? Okay, very good. All right, thank you, Neil. Right, let's move then to the item 12, committee action plan, self-assessment of audit and governance committee. So I think what we've got here is a slight variation. Perhaps I can explain that when we looked at the report, which is in the pack, well, what we decided in the last meeting was that we were going to concentrate on three things: the audit and governance terms of reference, the skills matrix, and the training plan. Three of us are on the sort of working group to look at that. And we do have some very good work by Lisa and I think by David Fairburn to flesh out the remit and the terms of reference of audit and governance. But when we looked at that in the preparation meeting, we found that we hadn't really given Councillor Birch enough time to go through that and check he was comfortable. And since he's the member for, or the executive member for governance, he asked us to defer that. So I'm happy if there's to take any comments or questions, and also to ask for any feedback or questions and comments on the skills tracker or other aspects, but we are going to defer the decision until the next meeting. So, I mean, we still do have a chance in the next month or two to take modifications or updates or feedback from comments. So, Councillor Nix.
It's just to say to the committee members if they can fill in the skills matrix. I think you've seen a copy of it now, and sort of return it so that we can have a look and see what training and what plans we have to make going forward. That would be really useful for the working group to then look at what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. Just because we put on hold the terms of reference doesn't mean that we can't progress with the other two. Councillor Hancock.
Just to make life easier for us, people lacking organisation, could that skills matrix get resent?
Oh, well, there we go. It's not organisation. It's yeah. Okay, so that's a very good suggestion. Let's send round the skills audit again and ask people to fill it in, and maybe do it by When would we want to do it so that we could, beg pardon? There's a link in the papers. Yeah, there's a link in the papers. But, yeah, it's that link. Well, we want to maybe have a chance to look at it and report back prior to the next meeting in December. So would that be feasible? Maybe do it in 4 weeks' time? Do it by the 10th of November or something like that, and then we've got time to look, 3 weeks to look at, for officers to maybe collate it or look at it or whatever we need to do, so that we've at least got some insight into it in the next meeting. Yeah, thank you very much, David. Appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of the day. Councillor Preswell.
Sorry, and this is sent back to whom?
Yeah, good question.
If you'd like to send it back to myself or Amelia, yeah, and we can collate those. Thank you.
I think we've got the link to the SIP for skills. I'm not sure we've got the link to the document that we would need to fill in, or do we just fill it in? Just fill it in. Oh, there we go. Just fill it in. We don't need to send. Is that right? Just fill it in and send it back as it is, or fill it in and don't send it back. Maybe we could clarify.
I'll put it into a Word document and send it to all members, and then everyone can just fill their own.
Yeah.
And I'll put on there the timetable, 10th of November.
If that's okay.
Yes, if that's okay for members. Thank you.
Yeah, good suggestion. Thank you very much. That's a helpful thing to do. Then we just move things forwards. And in terms of the training plan, then, where are we with the training plan? I've forgotten.
Well, we're not on the training plan because we haven't seen the skills matrix yet. So we can't do the training plan until we've seen the skills matrix. But obviously we can discuss that. If we're deferring this, we can put it on the work plan, which we're going to discuss in a minute, for December.
Okay. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I admit to being a bit confused about all this, to be honest. So are we deferring this whole paper?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because just looking back at the minutes, obviously it was agreed that there would be a working group of yourself, Councillor Nix, and myself.
Yes.
I might have been remiss in missing any communication.
Yeah, no,
about
because
that,
we didn't have a meeting. We didn't have a meeting with all the three of us. We said we'd do it by email, but there's a prep meeting that the two of us attended, and that's when we realised the issue with Councillor Birch. So sorry, we didn't include you in that discussion. It was apart from an email, I think, that you might have seen late in the day. Sorry about that. So we can have a meeting, Councillor Dennis. Now we've got a bit more time.
So, sorry, just to clarify, what was the issue with Councillor Birch?
He hadn't had time to look at it. I mean, we just hadn't circulated it to him, and he should see it. The terms of reference. This is not that he doesn't need to see the skills matrix or the work or the training plan, but he does need to see the new terms of reference because it's a governance question.
But this is the first time that we've seen the terms of reference.
Yes,
so
correct.
surely we should comment on it and
We're
then
happy
present
to,
it to Councillor
anyone
Birch.
can comment on it now or in the next couple of weeks, by all means, or prior to the next meeting when we'll table it again.
I'm only trying to clear up the order of things because we've had this problem with another task and finish group where Councillor Birch had seen the suggestions before the task and finish group had even seen them. So in my mind, the task and finish group, or in this case, this committee, should be having an opinion on it and then giving that opinion to Councillor Birch for him to have review of, rather than Councillor Birch first saying what he would like and then us looking at it after.
Well, maybe. I'm not sure precisely. I've got a view on that, but anyway, that sort of was what happened because we did see the draft of the terms of reference. I think you're on copy of that, and Councillor Birch hadn't seen them yet. And so, anyway, it doesn't really matter too much. Why don't we make sure we have a meeting of the three of us on the task and finish group to distill any comments that we have. Because we've only had a chance to do them by email, and I think there was just a little bit of short time amongst the officers to produce it, and there were other things that also needed to be done, like the accounts and so on. So they did a good job at least getting us a draft. Okay, so Amelia, if we could make sure we have a meeting in the right time. Okay, so we're happy. Are you happy, Sam, to defer this? I mean, with the proviso that we're going to fill in the skills matrix in the next couple of weeks.
We need to wait Anna, 'cause we're not quorum.
Oh, right.
Just really, she's not there.
No, she's not there. Right, Anna, we need you. Thank you. Right, so are we happy then that we take the recommendation that we defer this, noting that we're also going to have a meeting of the task and finish group, and noting that we're going to circulate the skills matrix and ask members of this committee to fill it in the next couple of weeks, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, so that we can move the process on in the December meeting. Do we have a second on that? Yep. Yep, Councillor Nix, all those in favour? Right, we're down to the bare bones of 5, but thank you very much, committee. Okay, next topic then, committee sponsored task and finish group and working group updates. So we only have, well, other than the task and finish group on the terms of reference and so on that we've just covered, we have the Freeport working group. So Councillor Nix.
Right, so since the last A&G meeting, committee meeting, we have not met as a working group because obviously it's been over the summer, but Amelia and Mr. Brooks have been trying to sort out our visit, which was agreed at the last meeting, to the Freeport site, etc. This has been quite difficult, but it is in hand, so we should have some dates for those on the Freeport working group to attend that within the next week or so. So if you're on the Freeport working group, then we'll get those dates out to you and do a best option on that. So I've got a little update about demand for the sites. So the combination of the Strategic Defence Review and the announcement of Plymouth as the UK National Centre for Marine Autonomy and the Industrial Strategy in June, supported by active engagement from several parties, contributed to a significant rise in inquiry levels in the June to September period. Through 2024 into early 2025, new inquiries consistently average about 6 per quarter. And a new inquiry, just so you're aware, is defined as one which leads to at least one meeting or call with the Freeport group. Since June, there have been 16 new inquiries, so a considerable uptick, of which 12 are in the defence and marine autonomy sector. All have been triaged and several have visited the area with linking to key partners required to support their inquiry. So that's just sort of checking that they fit the criteria. There has also been close coordination with PCC's inward investment team in handling inquiries and visits. Although relatively early stages, the heads of terms are being prepared for 2 of these companies. So that's a really good start, and looks like there are a lot of people, a lot of companies waiting to move into or inquiring about the facilities. That's the sort of update. Obviously, there will be topics that come out of the visit when we go, so we'll be adding those to the list. But listening to the topics today, I was just thinking, and I've just had a quick conversation with the chairman, although we've had the assurance from Bishop Fleming and Lisa regarding the borrowing, etc., we might want to look at the borrowing risk for the Freeport site going forward. We'll add that to the list of items. That's all, unless there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any, thanks, Bernard. Are there any questions then on the Freeport task and finish group? So just then for me to understand, so the visit, is that only for Freeport task and finish members? What about other members of this committee who might be interested? Could we get added on, or is there like a very hard limit on the number of people?
There is a limit, however, because Councillor Oram is no longer on this committee, he won't be part of the working group going
Right.
forward. So we will.
How many of you?
I expect to, and it's just only something that I thought of after our conversation first thing this afternoon about whether we wanted to replace Councillor Oram and Councillor Rake because they were both on the
How many
working group.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure what other members think, but I mean, we leave it to you, Councillor. Next, maybe to think about whether. I mean, it might be difficult to add somebody new. I don't know, but if you've got 3, that's probably enough. But you know, if there are new topics that come up and other members are interested, then it's an option. Maybe we take it informally in a chat after the meeting or by email or something if people want to write to you if they're interested. I mean, personally, I'd love to visit the Freeport to see what it's all about, but obviously I'm not on that working group. Yeah, just grass. Okay. Maybe not so interesting. I thought we were going to see the submarines. Okay. Okay.
The visit is just purely, to the Freeport sites, so Langage, Sherford, surrounding those. So.
Okay. I do have a question because yeah, I mean, to answer your point about the risk of borrowing, I mean, this was one of the topics that came up when we considered the Freeport right at the very beginning, to do with, I mean, and I think the recommendation said that we need to manage that risk and delay the borrowing so that we were prudent with finances. So I think it is a valid topic for the Freeport Working Group to look at because it was one of the recommendations. In terms of you know, the people, I think that's really more open to you to decide. If other people want to join, you know, they could write to you.
Absolutely. If anybody does want to join the working group, then please just email me and we'll move that forward. Thank you.
I mean, we have keen new members of this committee now, so they're, you know, excited at getting involved in the detail, I'm sure. No answer from over there. Okay. No, thank you for that. Are we going to see any written reports at some point?
Chair, there is a report on the Freeport that goes to the executive every 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, so the last executive, the written report went to the last executive or the executive before.
I think it might have been the one before.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but it is every 6 months.
Okay, yeah, that's right. It's every 6 months. So you input to that effectively. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. All right, well then let's move on. We're noting. Can we note the verbal? Right, so let's move that we note the verbal feedback. Any seconder? Oh yeah, they're all seconding. All right. Who's in favour? Councillor? Yep. Right, we're noting that. That's good. All right, thank you. Can we add into this item on task and finish next time the discussion about I mean, is it a task and finish group? I suppose it is really about the terms of reference and the skills matrix and the training plan. Yes. Just briefly, yeah. And we also have embryonic, the task and finish group on this item about exceptional decisions, which we haven't got off the ground. So let's have a look then at the next item, which is item 13, Audit and Governance Work Plan. So the Audit and Governance Committee recommend to approve its work plan. Right, we haven't got Darryl. Oh, but anyway, okay, I will move the work plan. So let's have a quick look at the work plan. So next time, just before we go into the detail, there is a slight chance that I might not be at this meeting in December, but Councillor Nix has kindly agreed to stand in if I'm not there as chair of the meeting. What we'll cover then is update on progress on the internal audit plan. So, Joe, hopefully you can come back and join us. Treasury Management mid-year report, strategic risk update and framework. So what? Oh, we haven't got Neil. I wonder what we're going to cover then. What?
That is the normal 6 monthly update on strategic risks to come to the committee. Yeah, so that's what that report will be.
Okay. Terms of reference for working group on the regeneration and investment strategy. That's what I was meaning as the new thing. So we'll at that one cover what we're going to do and who's going to do it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Action plan, self-assessment. That's what we cover now. Money laundering policy. Task and finish and working group updates and committee work plan. That looks quite a light meeting. No heavy documents. Incredible. Ah, yes, Nathan.
Our external audit annual report will come to that next meeting as well. So that will add a little bit of meat there.
That'll pad it out. Right, thank you. Right, can we add that? Okay, so that's your, so we understand that's your final audit recommendations.
That's the output from the value for money work that we do and just conclusions from everything pulled together. Yes,
Okay, thank you. Good. All right then, and then in March, we've got the budget book, shared services, code of conduct. Okay. Anything else we need to add for March? We haven't been asked to do any other task and finish work, have we? As far as I know. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. Just in regards to the task and finish group, obviously in the last minutes it was said that we would discuss the terms of reference and the membership in this meeting, so it's obviously been deferred. I don't think there was any sort of time restriction on it, but who is writing the terms of reference? Because the request came from Councillor Brazil, I believe, via yourself, didn't it? So I know with overviewing scrutiny, if a task and finish group is suggested, then it's down to the person that suggested to come up with the terms of reference, and then the committee agrees upon it and whether it's going to be taken forward or not. So I think we've already agreed to take this forward, but I'm just, you know, in terms of whose name is assigned in terms of writing these terms of reference.
Well, normally if it's an officer recommendation on the terms of reference, does that make sense, Lisa? Or I mean, is it something? I mean, based on Councillor suggestion, Councillor Dennis' suggestion, does it go to Councillor leader or deputy leader to just take a look at it prior to coming here, or what would be a good
yes,
way?
I mean, myself and Chris Brooke, we could certainly do a sort of first draft to run past Councillor Brazil and Councillor Thomas and yourself, Chair. I mean, really, I'm assuming that terms of reference will be probably, you know, in its simplest form, it will be, here's the strategy, let's review it, because it is just a strategy. So, you know, if you wanted it to be, it could be one line to review and update the regeneration and investment strategy, or you could make it bigger.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about, I mean, what he asked just from Jack, what he specifically asked about is the exception clauses, not the investment strategy itself. He raised the point about how do we take rapid decisions when there's very little time and when, you know, maybe all the information isn't available. That's what he's really asking about. So we don't need to review the overall strategy. We need to look at how the exception clauses work both in theory and in practice. And I think that's, yep, Councillor Dennis, is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I just think otherwise these task and finish groups can become very cumbersome. You know, Councillor Brazil clearly had something specific that he wanted us to look at, and in my mind that's the terms of reference. So I think Councillor Brazil would be the ones to sort of come up with a suggested terms of reference, and then it can be modified on its way to us.
Okay, well, that's, I mean, certainly good that he should look at it before it comes to us, at least make sure it's consistent with what his request is. I think that's a very good idea, actually. Otherwise, we're going to do something he's not really wanting. Yep. Okay. Okay. Any other points here on any other input that we need from external audit? Are you coming back in March, Nathan, to give us more? Or?
Well, we'll be back in December.
Chair, could I add one item? Annually, we do try to organise a private meeting for members of the Audit and Governance Committee with both the external auditors, Bishop Fleming, and the internal auditors at Devon Assurance Partnership. We are looking to have that meeting prior to the meeting on the 4th of December. So the committee is due to start at 2:30. Our proposal would be that at 12:30 on the 4th of December, we would put an hour in the diary for members of the Audit and Governance Committee to meet with Nathan and Joe in a private session for an hour. Then we would arrange some members' lunch, and then the committee would start at 2:30. So just a sort of note for members' diaries if that's available, 12:30 to 1:30.
Yeah.
It is already in the diary.
Oh, right. Sorry. Sorry, Alison, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think you've already sent that out. And we got an hour's meeting and lunch, I believe. I've already checked that lunch is included on the 4th of December. Perfect. Okay, so with that, we can close things. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate all the work that's gone into this and all the detailed analysis of it and feedback. Oh, bang the gavel. Done. Thank you.